We're here. We're doing the thing. We're playing more Deathmark. It's happening. Aren't you excited? I don't know why I've started this so aggressively. I apologize. Yeah, it's more Deathmark. It's Monday. It's been a fucking day. Stars! Hi! How are you doing? How's it going? Are you excited? I'm glad you're excited. What are we excited about? Are we You got good things happening for you, or are you just excited about silly weird ghosts in video game? I should probably like ask that. That's a thing that I should ask. My color balance is all like fucked today. More so than it usually is. So, excuse me, I'm just going to be incredibly pale. Oh, okay. We're excited about Ghost Time. I mean, I'm also very excited about Ghost Time. And I'm glad that other people are excited about Ghost Time. And I'm excited that you're excited. You, specifically. But I do also hope that things are going well for you. I hope you're good. I was gonna say, it's a Monday. I stayed up too late last night watching the Wrestle Lads. The Wrestle Lads and Wrestle Ladies, and it was great. Oh boy, it was a lot of fun. I sure did make a mistake doing that though, because my upstairs neighbors continued to make noise afterwards, so sleep was difficult, to say the least. But I've gotten some great news regarding that. And that news is that, sorry, I like just took a shower not too long ago and my hair is still wet. But the great news is that they're gonna be moving within the next week or so. And I'm like, fuck yeah, get out of here, you inconsiderate hooligans. No, I'm just like genuinely incredibly excited about the fact that like that problem's getting resolved. Sorry, like I'm trying to figure out how I want my hair to sit with my headphones on. So you just get to watch me part my hair in very strange ways for a minute. There we go. Because I need to be able to hear, and I can't hear past how much fucking hair I have. I think I am gonna cut my hair again. I think we're gonna get rid of all of it. I think I want shorter hair again. Maybe I'll go get it professionally done. We'll see. But I just want it all gone, I think, is the thing. Anywho. But yeah, we're doing Deathmark. We're starting the second to last chapter. Sorry, let me just like punch my microphone repeatedly while I try and like set everything back up the way that it needs to be. This is fine. Sorry, this is gonna keep bothering me. That's worse. Well, there's like at least color in my face. Oh, that's still probably the best, huh? Ugh. None of them are particularly good. Anyway, doesn't matter. I mean, matters that you see me, but it's fine. It's okay if the color's a little off. Still haven't heard back from Elgato support about the camera. Yeah, we can all look like ghosts today. This is fine. I'm cool with that. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say. So like, should we just like hop right on in? We ready to do this? Oh, right, hold on. I don't remember what was going on and I was in the menu. Can we quit game? Because we saved. I don't know what you just said, Vincenzo. I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese, buddy. We can see the main screen again for the first time in forever. So that's exciting. There we go. What happened yesterday? Because we played yesterday. We finished Kukuri. We handled that situation, I think. It was very unclear whether or not, well, I guess it wasn't really. Initially it was unclear whether or not we had saved him, or had appeased him, I should say. But then we heard the Departed be like, yeah, delicious ghost! And then it transformed into a horrible spider thing that we hated a lot. Everything got really red. And yeah, and it was bad. And I think that's it. I think that's what happened. There's some details in there, but it doesn't matter. But also, we're at the Kujou Mansion now. So, hello! Ida Nakamatsu here. Oh, hi. Thanks for your help last night. What do you want? That's... okay. Actually, Miss Yasuoka called me this morning to tell me something. The Departed's figure is getting darker and darker each day. You should back away from this now. Oh. Coming from a spiritualist like Yasuoka, those words would carry some serious weight. No wonder he's scared. Ida's information has really been a great help, but with all the people we've lost on this case, there's just no way I can try and talk him into risking his life to help me out. I got it. You were a great help. Thanks for all the work you did for me. Oh. Oh! I'll get back to teaching you how to work a computer once this case is all done. We'll start with internet use. That'll be something nice for you to look forward to, Cost. Yeah, thanks, assuming we survive. You know, just generally. Hold on, let me make sure I've got voice mod up and ready. In case the Departed shows up, you know? I don't know if I'm actually gonna stick to that bit, but it was pretty funny yesterday, so this is fine. Poor Vincenzo. Internet said that there were 7 chapters in total. So I wonder if, like, the last like, if this is, like, the actual last chapter, and the 7th chapter is sort of just, like, a wrap-up? Sorry, it's my dad. Oh, okay, that's fine. Actually, I should probably, like, message him back. Hang on! And then I'll actually turn that off. Alright. I leave the mansion and head to Konohara Academy. I have to report last night's events to Mr. Konoe. Enter the special building and walk toward the infirmary. As usual, there's nobody inside. Better go to the faculty room. Mr. Konoe's waiting for me. Why? Why, though? I don't want to trade for anything. There are 4 in this chapter. Excuse me, sorry. Okay. Oh my goodness, hold on. Sorry, there's like something tickling my throat. And it's causing me to cough. Please. Since afternoon classes are still in session, the faculty room looks emptier than usual. Mr. Konoe, who's sitting in the back of the room, notices my arrival. Ah, you're here, Cost. His voice sounds weak, and for some reason his complexion doesn't look so good. Are you alright? I assume you're inquiring about my physical condition? No, I'm not well. Been feeling lethargic and sluggish all morning. Perhaps it's the ravages of stress taking a toll on my body. Whatever, sir. But that's enough about me. I heard you received a notice yesterday. How did the investigation go? That's not to say that he can't be, you know, stressed out, and that can't be taking a physical toll on him. He's just so dramatic, and I don't trust this man. He can feel poorly, and I don't feel great that he feels poorly, but also, sir. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just don't like Konoe, I guess is what I'm saying. I bet it's, no, I do know what I'm saying. I bet it's so hard trying to cover everything up to make it look like it's fine and normal. I don't trust him. I heard you received a notice yesterday. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. I give him a detailed report about Mr. Kukuri's case from beginning to end. Just like, he's so sketchy! And the fact that, like, all he's doing is trying to, like, he looks like a smug cat. You're right! You are right! It's just, it frustrates me and makes me trust him less because, like, all he's doing is trying to make the deaths of these kids, which appear to be disappearances, or, like, people running away, from, like, the public eye because they don't necessarily know that it's ghosts. But it's, like, all he's doing is just getting, like, weird, sketchy people to pull some strings to make sure that no one knows that, like, all the people that have died. And I don't know. I don't particularly feel, you know, sympathy. Can't really empathize with somebody who's feeling stressed out about that when it's like they made it very clear from the beginning that this is just a thing that they can do. Like, it'd be different if it was somebody who was, like, thrust into this position and they're like, oh god, I have to make sure that no one finds out about these ghosts. He's just doing it because he doesn't want people to, like, look on the school poorly. And it's like, I don't know. I guess it's very roundabout, but whatever. It's ghosts, Fruity! Watch out! They're here! How's it going, friend? How are you doing? I've just been whining about Konoe this whole time, basically, so, like, you know, that's cool. The sour expression on his face as he listens to me recounting the events of last night tells me all I need to know. Goodness gracious. First Izumi, then Horikoshi, now Kakuta. 3 students have gone missing under my watch. And yet again, you failed to protect the targeted student. Bruh. Get fucked. You know, no, I'm gonna justify myself, because fuck this guy. If your justification satisfies the students and their parents, I would accept it as well. Though, if you ask me, your story would just serve to upset them further. Whatever. Mr. Konoe, you can fire me if you like. But how would you stop the departed then? Yeah, fucking tell him, Cost. Also, yeah, thank you, Stars. I was gonna say, I don't think, like, any of us are particularly fond of this guy, but also just, like, fuck him. You failed to protect the kid. You hired me specifically to find the departed, and also I've been trying to save these kids, but none of them have like, listened to me when I've been like, hey, maybe don't go do this thing. And just because I'm a teacher, that doesn't mean I can, like, physically stop them from making their own choices. On top of that, you try to stop some kids from getting murdered by a dang ghost. You try if it's so easy. Who's the spirit doctor here? It's not me. We hate that. We hate that name. We don't like being called the spirit doctor. Anyway. Yeah. Mr. Konoe falls silent on my words. Yeah, fuck you. You're right. No matter how many valid complaints I have, valid complaints, doesn't change the fact that you're the only hope I have of rectifying this situation. Bro. I let out an overly exaggerated sigh. I understand the situation he's in. Plus, what else can I do other than threaten him to stop bothering me? However, one more victim and you'll be dismissed. Sakamoto has backed me into a corner. She's suspicious of you, especially in regards to Doryu and Kinakawa. Honestly, fuck all these people. As much as I hate, and I'll say hate, Michio, because she's been weird and, like, gross with us. It's like, I'd rather... I don't know. I'd rather, like... The kids have been so much more helpful and, like, so much more proactive about the situation as a whole than, like, any of the adults have been, that it's, like... I don't know. Like... And I've had somebody with me the whole time that, like... I've interacted with these children. Stop accusing me of being gross! I'm not gross! We've only just started and I'm already so heated about everything. I hate this. Sakamoto can go kick rocks. I don't fucking know. She can go away. I've done nothing wrong. Konoe can piss off, cause he's a bad man. And I'm fixing his mess, that I'm pretty sure he and or his grandfather caused. Which is not to say that, like, you know, the what is it, like, the sins of the father or whatever. You know, you can be a good person, your ancestors have done shit things, but I think he's in on it. Even if he didn't, like, actively participate in whatever is going on, I'm pretty sure that he is complicit in it. So, you know, that's why I'm lumping him in on that. But everyone keeps saying that I'm being gross with these kids, and it's I'm not even, like, bothering all of the kids. I'm talking to the student council. That shouldn't be viewed as weird. They know all the students. They're, like, they should be in on all the, like, gossip that's going on. Why are people getting mad at me for talking to, like, the most direct source? Fuck! She's misunderstanding the situation. Your last chance. Understood? Fuck you, guy. Yeah. Anywho, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Fuck Konoe. Good. That's all for me, then. Don't let me down, Cost. Oh, boy, I'm gonna let you down. I'm gonna let you down so hard. I leave the faculty room, feeling Mr. Konoe still staring daggers into my back. And at this point, I don't know if, like, our character or anyone else is privy to it, but me, as the player, I don't necessarily think that there's gonna be... oh, excuse me. I don't think that there's gonna be, like, another... like, student that gets targeted, right? Because, like, the Departed's already turned into a spider lady. And, like, has her eyes set on me now, it seems like. So, like, I think the next notice is going to be for us specifically. But we'll find out. Honestly, I couldn't care less if Mr. Konoe and Sakamoto suspect me. But if I get kicked off campus, I won't be able to investigate. And I know I'm the only one who can pursue the Departed and bring this to an end. Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I understand that, and I get the concern here. Can't afford to make any more mistakes. Yeah, but you haven't really made that many mistakes. Realistically. Stars, thank you for the gummy contribution. Look at you remember. I had kind of forgotten that it was a thing. This is why I have chat remind us, but chat didn't even remind us. You just knew. But thank you for that. Chime sounds over the speakers. Looks like class is over already. What do I do now? I really want to start doing some investigating, but I have no idea where to start. Okay. The Departed, who's still hiding at Konohara Academy, is playing their cards well. You're eating gummies and remembered? Well, a Swedish fish count. I would count Swedish fish as a gummy snack. Yeah. Yeah. There don't seem to be any clues left. Like that prompted you to remember about it. That's very funny. In an endearing sort of way. I love that. Genuinely. If I have to pick one spot that still has some ties to them, the clock tower seems like the prime spot. During summer vacation, Doryu and Michio saw the female doll in the red dress there. At that moment, their bodies were afflicted with a curse. if the departed was the one who caused it, then that tower is probably connected with them. That's the other thing. Sorry, we're starting to get to the end of the game, so I'm probably gonna go on like a whole bunch of tangents, before we get to the end, just to be like, this is what I think, reaffirming what I've said before, blah, 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 just like that. But if it was the departed, or some spirit that, like, the departed was looming over, because it's not like the departed is controlling them, at least not in the way that, like, Mary was in the first game, right? But it's like, if it was a curse that one of the, like, spirits that the departed was lurking behind, you would have thought it would have killed them by now, because that was, like, months ago, right? And most of these curses seem to, like, affect everyone within, like, a couple of days, typically within 24 hours. And also a notice would have been left behind. There hasn't really been, except for the one time when, the girls were, like, you know, getting swarmed by bugs in the tower. Like, we haven't had a notice about them, right? So, I don't know, I don't necessarily think that they're the same. The doll and the departed, that is. And I don't necessarily think that whatever curse the student council girls have is related to the departed. I'm still, like, holding on to that, to my theory of the doll was the thing that was, like, holding the departed, or was, like, containing it. Yeah, secret secondary ghost. If not secret secondary ghost, I think it was, like, because I don't know that you know about the first game, Stars, which is okay. That's fine. It's really good. But in the first game, we established that our character, like, the main character's family, were all, like, spiritualists of some sort, and one of them, would make, like, ball-jointed dolls, I think, to house spirits to try and, like, keep them contained, or to, like, keep them from being able to hurt people. So they'd, like, trap the spirit within this doll and then perform rituals on it to, like, you know, make sure it didn't get out or whatever. Pretty sure that's what happened in the first one. Again, it's been a minute, but I think those are the details of it. The fact that we have come across yet another ball-jointed doll, and that a curse fell on a couple of girls after essentially disturbing it, like, they didn't, like, at least from what Michiho and Doryu have said to us, they didn't necessarily, like, mess with or touch the doll or anything like that. But because our family has died, and the one person that was doing, like, these rituals for the dolls wasn't able to do that anymore, like, even just walking into the space could potentially, like, disturb the area enough that it could, like, release the spirit, right? And so maybe, like, that's how the departed got out. And so the doll could just be, like, trying to reclaim the departed and bring it back so that it's no longer hurting anyone. That's kind of my running theory at the moment, but we'll see. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, if the departed was the one who caused it, then that tower is probably connected with them. There might be something in there. But Doryu can't find the key. Multi-ghost drifting. There's just everywhere. They're all over the place. Why are there so many dang ghosts here? It's because it's haunted. And it's because Konoe and his family have done something horrible. Should I go visit her? Should I go visit who? Student council? Is that who we're talking about? I stopped paying attention for a minute there. No, okay, it is. Doryu is standing near the window when I enter the student council room. She notices my presence right away and turns to me. Oh, so you're here today. I heard about Kakuta from Michiyo. Yeah, it was really unfortunate. Say, Doryu, is the key to the clock tower still missing? Yes, I've been looking for it everywhere. I see. Just like that, the thin thread that might lead me to some answers has been severed. About the clock tower. One time, the clock tower doll I saw made the school newspaper. I was skimming through the school's old newspapers this morning, hoping to get information about the departed. How old? How old are these newspapers? And then I found an article about a female doll. Mr. Konoe told me the school's historical records were lost due to war damage, but for it to have been buried in the school newspaper archives. Aren't you squeamish when it comes to horror stories and the like? What made you do it? Oh, I just wanted to be of some help. Doryu! I really like Himiko. Me, Keish. I like Himiko as a character. I wasn't sold on her at first. I didn't, like, have an active dislike of her. But I was just kind of like, yeah, she's just there. It's fine. I really like her, though. And I'm still very concerned that she might be the departed. But I think my suspicions are being lightened towards her. I just really like her. Yeah, well, thank her for the help. No problem. Glad to be able to hear that from you. Can you tell me the details of that rumor? Yeah, look, I just think she's neat. No, she's very responsible, but like, I don't know. She's cute? Can I say that? Is that fine? Just like, I don't know, she's just precious. And I'm just like, I just want to protect her. Let me just protect you. But not be weird about it, because that's not, no. She's just neat. Can you tell me the details of that rumor? Yes. I'm just worried that everyone's gonna think I'm being weird about all these characters now. Not just because everyone thinks of Vincenzo's being weird about these characters. It's not true. I don't like most of them. But Himiko's cool. She's solid. Good student prez. There was a rumor going around Konohara Academy. "60 years ago, the first headmaster built the clock tower to commemorate the school's 10th anniversary. A stylish stone clock tower that stood tall in the remote countryside of Konohara. Many students were wondering what the inside of the tower was like. Overcome with curiosity, some eventually snuck into the tower. What they saw inside the tower was the first headmaster's collection. There were a lot of antique things, but the item that caught the attention of the most people was a doll wearing a red wedding dress that lay on a stone altar. I knew he was weird. I knew that Grandpa was sus. Rumors of the doll spread in no time because everyone was interested in its origin. However, the first headmaster had already passed away by that time, so he was unable to answer those burning questions. With nobody to tell the truth, wild speculation regarding the doll ran unchecked. The first headmaster, who'd always been fond of antique goods, had bought that doll from a European family. That, I think, is like the Sorry, that's jogging my memory about the first one. Maybe the guy only made dolls to, like, continue working on Mary. Or maybe the story that Mary had, like the backstory for Mary, was just fabricated. I'll need to play the first one again. Maybe take back everything that I've said already. Because this sounds like really familiar regarding the first game. Not necessarily about, like, the girl who becomes a sacrifice, but it's fine. It's a cursed doll that was modeled after young girls who became sacrifices. First headmaster had a craftsman make the doll to enshrine the deities of Konohara. Oh, no. Okay, hold on. I have to look this up. This is gonna bother me now. Let's see. Get out of here, ads. Can you just give me a synopsis of the plot? Oh, there was some, apparently, sorry, as I'm looking at this, apparently there was some censoring of the first game. And not even over anything that was, like, super ridiculous. I just want... I would like the wiki for Mary, please. Oh my god, ads, why are you so ridiculous? Sorry, let me move this here. She was obtained by the Kuzhou family, so they didn't make her. Okay, never mind. I could have sworn that one of the family members was making dolls. Maybe I'm just making shit up. Why is there information? Sorry. Maybe I'm making dolls up. It's true. It's also weird because there's, like, not a lot of information for her in Death Mark. Like, in the section marked Death Mark in this wiki, but there's information about her in NG, and I'm like... I don't know if somebody just mixed that up, or if she does actually show up in NG, in which case I'm like, oh, I should probably, like, not look at that. Don't want to give myself spoilers. Okay, let's do this. So, spoilers for the first game. Just FYI. Mary Kuzhou is responsible for all the horrors that occurred in the game. A diabolical doll, born from the curse and the hatred of the curse's victims. Mary was given sapience and dark power, which she used to create the cannon soldier to sate her bloodlust. Yeah, I kind of remember that. She was sealed away by the Kuzhou family, but reawakened after Masamune Kuzhou, our character, the guy that we're playing as, released the seal when it weakened. Regaining her power slowly, she marked the area around her as cursed land, where anyone who died there were transformed into monsters who instinctively killed innocents, with the purpose of spreading fear. She kills our sister and cursed us with the death mark, with the purpose of extracting fear from him. Giving the ghost she created the power of the death mark, she tricks Masamune into helping other mark bearers as a way to bring them to the brink of death to take their despair and to further dread in the city. Okay. Was it... Sorry, I could probably just do this some other time. But I need to know. Okay. okay, so our character, this is all I needed to know. Our character learned how to work on ball-jointed dolls so that while his sister was still alive, they could both put, essentially, like, a seal within Mary to make sure that she couldn't, like, hurt things. Okay, so maybe this doll isn't actually great and is not related to our family at all. I'm just full of shit and was making things up. Doll's evil. Or could be from the same place that Mary came from, but is actually fine. I'll stop. I'll stop theorizing now. It's fine. My entire theory was based on incorrectly remembering things. It's fine. No, so she was already... The big weird doll was already possessed by a thing to make sure that she, like, stopped... she stopped, like, hurting other things or to, like, suppress her power because a weird sect was using her to, like, try and, like, weaponize ghosts like you do. Yeah, she was pre-possessed. It came pre-ghostful. Yeah, most dolls are fine, actually, Tom, but maybe not these two dolls. Pre-possessed is very good. But, yeah, so, like, he learned... Our character learned how to work on dolls so that he could, like, place a talisman within her without, like, causing damage to her body and, like, therefore making the situation even worse by, like, accidentally, like, fully releasing her or whatever. That's the general gist. I was making things up. I still don't necessarily think that she's, like, that this particular doll is evil. I mean, we'll see. I think I mentioned it before. It's like she's being helpful, but it felt like Mary was being helpful. But as the wiki said, like, she was trying to, like, she, like, fed off fear and despair. And so, like, by bringing everyone, like, face to face with these ghosts, she was able to, like, you know, feed off of that. So maybe that's what's happening here. Except the people that, like, by the time she was helping us, most of the people that had been marked were dead. So it doesn't make sense. We're moving on. You're not gonna get any answers by me just sitting here screaming about, I don't understand! So. The first headmaster had a craftsman make the doll to enshrine the deities of Konohara. It's a doll made to calm the soul of a student who lost their fiancé and committed suicide. No definitive answer was ever found because there wasn't anyone around who knew the truth. In the end, everyone forgot about the doll in the clock tower once the war broke out. Departed could be one bad ghost, and doll could be a second, also bad ghost. It's true. It's true. This is all true. There are so many possibilities, and I just want answers. And I know they're gonna give them to me, because it's been good about that so far. But I want them now! And that was the rumor featured in the school's newspaper. There was just a weird doll that was made because somebody got sad that their fiancé died? Okay. It's truly an interesting story, but the rumor has so many variations regarding the origin of the doll. Which one is the truth, if any? Oh, okay, they were all proposed ideas. I understand. Could be that she was made for some guy whose fiancé died and he was sad and was like, I just want to see her again. It could be that some weird European family made this haunted doll, the boop haunted doll watch, and then passed it on to somebody else. I need to make that a sound alert, actually. Or a sound command so that we can pull that up in chat. Or whatever the other one is that I don't remember. Okay, it's fine. Right, let me confirm one thing. Are there any rumors about the doll moving? No, none at all. Oh, okay. There are people who have seen the female doll, but not when she's moving. Guess I'm the only one who's witnessed it. I've gotta go soon. Thanks, Doryu. I hope that information can help you in some way. I have to head out as well. The teachers told us not to stay at school. That's fine. I'm also probably gonna need to get water soon. I haven't even been here that long, and I've already chugged all my water. I say goodbye to Doryu, and I leave the student council room. Also, my glasses are filthy. Rumors about the female doll. Okay. Yeah, I need to just stop trying to, like, guess what's happening. I like just, like, thinking about ideas for this game. Because they do give you, like, for the most part, they give you, like, enough crumbs here and there, right? That, like, you could just kind of, like, try and piece things together. I don't know. I just like it. Like Himiko, I just think it's neat. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Can I go to the library? Is this where I need to be? When I step into the library, I find a girl whose appearance clashes with the place. Oh, it's Saki. What's up? Kakuta didn't come to school today. You know anything about it? Sorry, no idea. There's no way I can tell Maruhashi about Kakuta's death. What are you doing here? I'm just chilling here. Got no place to go. Not after I learned how terrifying that corridor was. And you should just go home. Didn't the teachers tell you not to hang out here after class? Who knows? Maybe something weird will happen to you again. Stop acting like a teacher! And don't freak me out like that, but I am a teacher. Temporarily! But I am a teacher. I was about to go home anyway. My body just feels really heavy somehow today. Are you gonna stay until night again? If you do, be careful. I have a bad feeling. Aw, thanks, Saki. I say goodbye to Maruhashi and leave the library. Leave the library. So I was just starting to, like, slur my words together. Infirmary. Oh my god. Still some time left until the students have to go home. Let's go to the special building. Maybe there's someone there. Hi. Okay, you know what? No, I'm gonna go grab some water right now. Maybe I'll get a soda as well. Maybe I'll be extra and get a soda. Hi! Oh, it's a Dino! Oh, it's a Mark! Okay. I thought about it. I did not grab a soda. I decided against a soda. However, I did grab some craisins. Yeah, I have craisins now. Oh, that's exciting. it's not trail mix. It's like 1/8 of the trail mix. It's fine. It's delicious. And we love them. You'll sip your Topo Chico in spirit. His little packs of craisins, the same. I understood what you meant. Rain sins. I'm only ever gonna refer to raisins as rain sins now. I love that though. I love I like raisins. I know that a lot of people don't. I really like raisins, and I do love like the little boxes. The fact that there are craisin boxes, like raisin boxes, rain sins boxes is delightful. I just bought like a huge like 5-pound bag of craisins from Costco because I like bulk buying things. I also had like the idea of making like, what is it, like muffins and stuff, only to get home, like after purchasing them, only to get home and realize I don't have like any flour, and I also don't have any muffin tins, so I can't make muffins. It's tragic. Could do like a sheet cake though, because buying like muffin tins and shit like that it's expensive. Just make muffins in my hands. I'll just put all the stuff in my hands and then just shove them in the oven. That'll work out, right? He's telling me there's nothing to do in the building. Well, where do you want me to go? I guess he did say we need to like explore the special building, but I went to the library and Saki was there. She's left now. I went to the student council room. Doryu was there. She's left now. Can we go back to the faculty room? What if Sakamoto's there and gets all pissy at me for existing? Ugh! Sorry. Speak of the devil! When I enter the faculty room for a second time, I see Sakamoto inside. Bitch! Sorry. I'm allergic to bitches. Still plaguing our school, are you, Mr. Cost? Asked Mr. Konaway to do away with you, though. Oh, don't worry, he heard you. He told me that I'll be dismissed if I make another mistake. That Konaway is far too lenient. If an incident occurs, it'll be too late. I need to deal with this problem quickly. By problem, are you referring to my qualification as a teacher? I'm not... Listen. She is 100%, 100% referring to the student council members, right? Because she thinks I'm a creep. But if I just directly address that, no matter what I do, I'm fucked, right? Because if I directly address it, then she's gonna be like, oh, so you know what I'm talking about. And it's like, well, yeah, of course I do. You've been very clear about it. And I have also been very clear that I'm not a creep. However, but then if I, like, don't address it, and I talk about something else, she's gonna be like, well, you know what I'm trying to talk about. And it's like, she just wants to be mad at me, and she's gonna be mad at me no matter what I do. So fuck you, I'm gonna talk about the Departed's investigation. That is certainly a problem. Though I'm more worried about Doryu and Kinakawa. Well... I don't know what kind of nonsense you've concocted in your that skull of yours, but I assure you, there's nothing going on. I have no intention of doing anything untoward with any students. And yet, an incident can still occur even without a teacher having any such intentions. Just like in Mr. Hirose's. Hirose, the art teacher Sakamoto told me about when I was investigating Slitmouth Kashima. Yeah, but he was vaguely culpable in that because he didn't set any hard boundaries with any of the girls that were being weird with him. I have explicitly told them, don't. So... Both Kashima and Manabe had a crush on him, which spiraled into tragic consequences. I've warned Doryu and Kinakawa not to get close to you, but seeing them defend you so fervently, situation is getting dangerous. That's what my intuition as a woman is telling me. Girl, I don't know who hurt you, and I am sorry if they did. If and who, whatever. I'm sorry if that situation happened to you. Don't project that on me! I've done nothing wrong! Let me repeat it again. This is all just a big misunderstanding on your part. I've warned you, Mr. Cost. If you'll excuse me then. Ouch! Sakamoto grimaces, pressing her fingers to her temple. Hey, you alright? Leave me be. I've been having terrible headaches since this morning. This is all your fault. You're... What? Mumbling and invectives at me. Invectives? I don't know that I've ever heard that word before. Insulting, abusive, or highly critical language. I mean, that makes sense. I just wanted to, like, make sure. Huh. Since this morning, eh? Sorry, I'm just gonna keep rolling up my sleeves, and then rolling them down, and then rolling them back up, and then rolling them back down. That's just what I'm doing this stream. Sakamoto hurriedly stumbles out of the faculty room. Jeez. A big sigh escapes my lips. There's nothing I can do about it. I have to investigate the departed. And sometimes, the only way I can make progress is by getting the students' cooperation. I shouldn't refrain from asking them. Facts. Also, sometimes? You mean every time? School will be closing shortly. All students, please promptly vacate the school grounds for today. It's finally time for students to leave school. I head back to the infirmary and try to come up with some kind of strategy for tonight. Okay. Also, it doesn't look like my microphone is picking it up. Or any of the last times that I've snacked during stream. Which, like, I know y'all don't mind. It bothers me that I'm doing it, but I kind of have to. My new medication has made me... I don't want to say it's made me more hungry, but I eat, like, smaller portions throughout the day now. But I eat more regularly. And I just need food all the time. But, if you can ever, like, hear it through my mic, please tell me, and I will adjust. Because I know that, like, eating and, like, wet sounds and things like that really bother me. And I don't want to do that to other people. It's specifically, like, eating noises and, like, wet eating noises that make me ill. But, yeah. What are you doing here, Abe? School ended a while ago. You better go home now. Oh, I'm gonna eat those snacks. I'm gonna eat all the snacks. not the horrible kissing noises from that movie. I could just blame the eating sounds on the ghost. It's true. Okay, cool. Like I said, like, it didn't look like it was being picked up on my mic, but sometimes it lies. Thank you for letting me know. Alright, goodness, that is too much. I'm not asking for grand gesticulations of friendship, but it wouldn't hurt you to be a tad but kinder, you know. After all, I have come all the way here to provide you with information regarding the departed. I can't even, like, a lot of times I can just, like, make the noises that we've heard previously. I can't mimic those horrible kissing hobbit sounds. They were bad. Come again? With the lack of notice and no new pertinent information, pretty desperate. Let's give him a listen for now. I mean, I guess. Almost worse than ghosts. Almost. The ghost sounds are pretty bad. I'm listening. Tell me more. Before we get to the meat of my report, there's something I'd like to tell you. This will be my final act of assistance. I shall cease pursuing the departed after this. Is this because Yasuoka told you to stop? Oh really? What's with the sudden decision? I saw something with my left eye. I witnessed my own tragic end, assaulted by a terrifying demon with numerous legs. By demon with numerous legs, I assume he must be referring to some kind of bug. Oh, excuse me. If you wanted to ride me for my cowardice, feel free to do so. But I won't die if I abandon my pursuit now. My master has also warned me to do so. I'm not gonna laugh at you. You've made a wise decision. However, it seems like you have not been afforded the same option. You cannot run from the departed any longer. So this is my parting gift to you as you take another step closer to death. Thanks, Abe. I'm still gonna kick you into the sun. The Departed, a name we learned through the notices. However, that sinister name has existed since long before we first heard it. 100 years ago, before Konohara Academy was even founded, a dark incident occurred on these lands. There was a small village called M-Town, near Konohara. At some point, residents of M-Town succumbed to an unknown disease, one by one. In the end, the village was destroyed and the incident was forgotten. But one of the residents said this before they died. This is the Departed's wrath. This is the most valuable information I've ever found. That's some interesting information. Where did you learn it? From the former headmaster. He liked to study the school's history during his spare time. When the first notice arrived, I went to him and asked if he knew something. So he told you about the Departed's wrath, and you didn't share this with us earlier? Yes, it sounded like a mere ghost story to him more than anything. He was a realist. He didn't believe in the Departed. If I remember correctly, that headmaster died of a heart attack, right? Yep. If he were still alive, you might have learned more valuable information from him. Right after the Departed's notice first arrived, the only person who knew about their past died. Another convenient coincidence. Well, I shall be going home soon. To tell you the truth, I've been feeling under the weather. Perhaps I'm possessed. Everyone's feeling ill today. It's because everyone's hanging out where the ghost is. Now that yeah, there we go. Now that I think about it, I've heard similar complaints from a lot of people today. It could just be an outbreak of some disease, but the events of last night suddenly crossed my mind. What if the Departed's transformation now gives them the power to not only affect the school, but humans as well, and during the day nonetheless? Or am I overthinking things? No, I don't think that's too wild an idea. Like, given how much of a change occurred at the school and to the Departed, during, like, the previous investigation, like, it wouldn't surprise me that it's affecting everyone else, especially now with the mention of, like, the Departed's wrath and a village dying of, like, some weird disease. Even with it happening during the day, it could just be, like, bleeding through, you know? Mr. Cost, the gruesome death I saw with my left eye also applies to you. What awaits you is an inevitable catastrophe. I hate to see the great spirit doctor lose his life this way. Okay. After despondently speaking those words, Abe leaves the room. I guess I'll take that as a sign that he's really worried about me. Aw, he likes me. The sun sets and darkness falls on Konohara Academy. How many times have I greeted the night here? Why is the phone ringing now? Hello? Ah, it's me, Michio Kinakawa. Thank goodness you're still at the school. What's wrong? Just wanted to ask if you made any progress with your investigation. I'm curious. I'm in front of the school now. Mind coming out? I don't mind, but could we just talk over the phone? Oh, geez, it's fine, isn't it? I'll be waiting then. But everyone's gonna think I'm a creeper. Sakamoto just gave me that warning today. Well, I have no choice since I made a promise. You did not promise anything! Should I head to the main gate now? No. New building, please. Oh, it doesn't even give me the option of which place to go. Lights in the hallway are glowing red. Given the lack of commotion right now, I'm guessing nobody's noticed yet. Oh well, it's pretty hard to miss, so someone's going to notice it sooner or later. Hold on a second, I need to blow my nose. Alrighty. Okay. Door won't open. Understood. I guess we'll go outside. Where is she? Michio's waiting in front of the main gate. The moment she sees me, she rushes over like a puppy. Don't touch me! Good evening, Mr. Cost. You look tired today, too. Not surprised, though. How are you feeling? Same old, a bit tired since I haven't been getting a lot of sleep lately. Never mind that. How's your investigation going? Did you learn any new facts? Not a lot, but I tell her about the story of the Departed's Wrath that I heard from Abe. Wrath of the Departed? Sounds like something from a fantasy novel. Did the previous headmaster tell you anything? Nope, I wasn't particularly close to him. I'm student council vice president, but I usually just have Hime deal with the teachers. Oh, okay. There's something that's caught my attention. I remember M-Town coming up in one of the cases somehow. Now that she mentions it, that name does sound somewhat familiar. In which case, did the name M-Town show up? Wasn't it the Kashima, excuse me. Because there was the, like, M Tower or whatever. Right? I recall what happened when we were investigating Slitmouthed Kashima. Yeah, I feel like I saw that name during the Slitmouthed Kashima's investigation. Like, it was, like... I think it had something to do with the bus, I think. Where did I see the name M-Town? Bus route map. I tried to remember what was written on the bus route map I saw. We can just walk a block and go look at it. Bingo. Oh yeah, the shop! Wait! Oh yeah! One of the bus stops I saw that time was M-Town shop. I immediately let Michiho know about it. Oh, you're right. Sure have a good memory. If the owner is a descendant of an M-Town resident, they might have some documents from the past. Yeah, except when we tried to, like, look at it before, because I was wandering around and, you know, investigating and all that shit, like, there was that notice, right? Like, that said, like, mourning or whatever? As in, like, mourning a loss? So, like, I think they're dead. Try going to the M-Town shop. Sure, let's go there together. No! Wait a minute, you're coming with me? Of course I am. But don't you have a curfew? No need to worry, Hime can handle it. Dorm manager trusts her, you know. It's not the issue, though. I don't want to leave you alone. Carrying these burdens all by yourself just seems really tough. Tough, huh? Yes, it is. Mr. Konoe's ultimatum, Sakamoto's hostility, Abe's prediction of death. Only one of these is valid. Sorry. The departed constantly targeting me, students I couldn't protect, Damon unconscious in a hospital bed. My heart is screaming from all the weight it's bearing, but I've chosen to close my ears and ignore it. I know I can't help carry all that heavy baggage, but I can at least help you relax a bit. Would you like to clarify what you mean? I'm begging you, I'm not asking for too much. Horrible. Her kindness tastes as sweet as honey to my exhausted mind. Except, there's a chance she might be the departed. Michiyo and I climb into the car I parked near the school. M-Town shop isn't too far from here. I don't think it's her. We've drawn so much attention to both her and Himiko. Specifically in regards to the whole, I can't trust anyone nonsense. It's like, it's not them. I parked my car nearby and walked toward the bus stop in front of M-Town shop. Ugh, this shop is so creepy. The building is run down and there's no sign of life inside. Doesn't look like anyone actually lives here. Find out for sure once we check it out. Yeah, but they're dead. Crooked guardrail and a slanted pole. Looking at the brake marks on the road, it seems like there was a car accident here. Safe driving is important. You should take that to heart, Mr. Cost. There's an old mailbox hanging on the wooden wall. When I peer inside, I find a postcard. Wonder what's the postcard of? Let's check it out. It's for our investigation. Why are you being so casual about everything? Without responding and before I can tell her to stop, Michiyo's already got her hand on the mailbox lid. It's not opening. Is it locked? I don't see any keyhole, though. Before we do any of that... A vending machine with bottled water inside. A rare sight these days. Right, I remember this. Is it out of order? Geez, what a shame. I wanted to buy a bottle of water for nostalgia. Why?
Yoshi.
There's a faded paper with the word morning on it pasted on the glass door. Isn't this a morning notice? I think they hang it up on a house, and they're supposed to remove it after 49 days. Sure know a lot of strange things, huh? When my grandma died, one of my relatives told me about it. But does that mean someone here passed away sometime in the past 7 weeks? I suppose it would imply that. Okay, can I open this? Old mailbox hanging on the wooden wall. When I peer inside, I find a postcard. Lid is stuck. Okay. Would be counterproductive to take the bus since I came here by car. Just figured I would look at it. Oh! Sorry, I didn't realize that you could actually see the marks on the, like, the tire marks. That's neat. The other side of this dusty glass door is pitch black, preventing us from seeing the inside of the store from this vantage point. Yeah? Are you sure about that? What's going on here? I hear an eerie male voice coming from inside the shop. Also, can I offer you a bottle of Kayshurrr? Non-branded, non-trademarked branded Kayshurrr? Whose voice was inside? Inspect! There's no bell anywhere around the store. We'll just have to knock on the door to see if there's someone inside. Knock. Jesus. There's no response. Maybe they're asleep. Let's try it again. Or maybe don't. Still no response. Let's give it one last try. Third time's the charm, right? Oh my god, you do it then. Thanks. You've made my head explode. What are we seeing? Well, jeez. My head. My head. Head! A scene suddenly flashes before my eyes. And that scene is... Oh, boy! Of an elderly man lying on the ground of an old store. He's got the centipede brain. His head is deformed and swelling to the point of becoming gelatinous. Swarms of centipedes continue to issue forth from his eyes. Big ol' centipede brain. Bugs, bugs, bugs! This is... It's automatically going forward. The Departed's Wrath! He heard that if you have a lot of folds in your brain, you're, like, supposed to be smarter. I don't think anyone told him that it shouldn't be centipedes. What's he thinking about? It's centipedes. It's got centipedes on the brain. This is horrible. This is bad. I don't like this. The moment he stops speaking, his body also stops twitching. All that moves in the dark now are the bugs. Jesus Christ. I wonder what caused this to happen. Brainstem? Oh, centipede. Horrible. Can no longer hear any response coming from his gaping mouth. There's one thing that I'm dead certain about. He said this was the Departed's Wrath. Why didn't the old man take off all his clothes when he got covered with bugs? Good question! Makes me wonder what the girls were doing. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't, because they survived. And they lasted longer than he did. Sir, just get naked about bugs. Duh. Horrible. Awful. Bad. What's wrong? Just thinking about centipedes. I saw what happened. The owner of the shop, he was probably killed by the Departed's Wrath. I described the vision I just saw to Michiho. So the person that was being mourned was that old man you saw then? I guess so, yeah. But they had the mourning notice up, which means they had a funeral, and that means his corpse must have been found. And it's odd because the other victims' corpses disappeared. How could that be? That's because the Departed didn't kill them. Other ghosts did. Didn't Kakuta's corpse remain too, though? Maybe there are times when they don't need to get rid of the corpse or something. Well, yeah, but Kakuta was mushrooms. Kakuta was no longer people, he was mushrooms. Maybe old man stopped being people and was just centipedes. I don't understand. This is just a guess, but the Departed wants to continue this whole little notice game. If there's actually a dead body found at the school, the police will come. There's a chance that the school will be closed, and then there won't be any students. So maybe they only discard the corpses at school. But Manabe's body was also disappeared, and she didn't die at the school. That one was probably because of you, though. With that corpse in the hospital, the cops probably would have arrested you, and that's also not something the Departed wants. That actually makes sense, since I'm supposed to be their husband. And this ends my sloppy deduction. Thank you for listening. Although she doesn't think too highly of her reasoning, I have to admit that it does make sense. Yeah, I guess. His corpse was found outside the school and had no ties to me. Therefore, it remained. Why was he cursed, though? I'm not so sure, but maybe it's because he was a descendant of an M-Town resident? M-Town was destroyed by the Departed's Wrath. Well, we don't know what exactly happened there. The Wrath still remains, and it killed the old man. What was that sound? It came from the mailbox. Can I look at the postcard now? There's an old mailbox hanging on the wooden wall. When I peer inside, I find a postcard. Doesn't look any different. Maybe I was just hearing things. Just to be sure, I try and open the lid one more time. Unlike last time, it opens easily. How is this possible? Did something just happen to get caught so the mailbox refused to open? Was there a trigger or something? Oh well, not like I'm gonna get any answers. Time to see what was locked away. I collect the postcard. It's addressed to M-Town Shop, though I have no idea who the sender is. Oh, the sender's the previous headmaster. I flip the card over and find some words of gratitude written on it. This is obviously some kind of thank you letter from the previous headmaster. Reading the letter more thoroughly, the shop owner apparently donated an old book about M-Town's ritual to the school. An old book about M-Town, huh? Interesting. Should be in Konohara Academy now. Probably in the library. Although, if they consider it to be a valuable item, they might have put it away somewhere else for safekeeping. Came this far, and that's where the trail leads, so why don't we try looking for it? Let's go back to Konohara Academy. Let's go. Time to leave. We're gonna go find a book and read it. Leave M-Town Shop and get into the car I parked nearby. Gonna go read a book. Just a second. My screen is gonna be very bright for a moment. Okay. This is fine. Let's see. Trip back to Konohara Academy should only take about 5 minutes if we don't get caught in traffic. Throughout the ride, Michio only stares blankly at the scenery outside. She was in such high spirits earlier. Wonder what's wrong. Say, Mr. Cost, do you have a moment? Michio calls out to me in a low, subdued voice, as if she were waiting for the right moment to spring something on me. Oh no. I need your opinion on something. It's related to The Departed. Mind if I talk about it? Sure, go ahead. It's about The Departed's notices. Do you remember how many notices we've gotten? Been like 4 or 5? Including the one that arrived before I came to the school. Oh shit. Okay, so we had ribbon, we had pianist, we had one for model. I was trying to think of what Hanako's girlfriend's name, like what her thing was. It was model. We then had student council. Gold prize. And then hooligan, right? So 6? Correct! Way to go! I'm surprised I, like, remembered all of those. I tried to recall the 6 notices. First was targeting Ribbon, aka Kyoko Takai, and the second one was targeting Pianist, Toshihiko Izumi. The third notice was for Naomi Horikoshi, the model, and the fourth was for Megumi Manabe, gold prize. Fifth was for Doryu and Michio, student council, and finally, the hooligan, Shinichi Kakuta. What about the notices? I want to know what the purpose was for issuing those notices. The Departed isn't a spirit who goes around committing horrible acts for fun. They issued those notices with a goal in mind. Ever since the model notice, they've been releasing those notices to test you, their husband. But what about the first 2? Well, now you've got me all curious about it, too. Do you have any ideas? Well, yeah, sorta. If they issued the latter notices as a trial for their husband, I'm guessing that also applied to the first 2. So were you saying there was already a marriage candidate even before I arrived at the school? Yep. If I'm right, who do you think it was? The potential husband before me was... Well... I mean, Abe was also a spiritualist, right? So, like... And he was already at the school. Konoe... like, is there. It's not Izumi. We can just cross him off. If... if the departed and the doll are the same, which is starting to possibly look like that's the case. Just because, you know, we're investigating the doll somewhat, but we're also investigating the departed. I don't know. That's not really any substantial anything. But regardless, if the dolls... Let's say that the doll's backstory of her having been, like, made because some dude was sad that his fiance died. Somehow... Let's say somehow the spirit, like, took over and now she's, like, looking for her husband, right? It could be that Konoe's grandfather was somehow involved in that. But she seems, like, really focused on someone that can, like, save spirits. Because that's the whole test, right? If we can make, like, the spirits super tasty because we've offered them, like, full salvation, is what she says, then we'll prove that we're her husband. So it wouldn't be Konoe, because he's fucking useless. And also a piece of shit, so it'd be Abe. No! Michiho! Fuck off! I just thought about it! You weren't listening to me! You just said whoever was on your mind. I don't know any other male students. Who do you think it was then? Izumi. Why? Izumi was different from the other victims. Before he was murdered, he said, "The departed is calling me." But I thought others had said that too. I actually heard his last words. Seems like he knew the departed's true identity. I mean, the departed does seem to have everyone's phone numbers. Seriously, who is it? Well, he didn't actually say. But if he really did learn the departed's true identity, he probably was being put on trial. That doesn't make sense to me. But whatever. So the first notice really was issued to test Izumi, huh? I guess he was deemed unfit since he abandoned Takai and ran away. Maybe that's why he became the second target. I guess... No, okay, no, as they explain that makes sense, I guess. I don't see why he of all people would be the one that she chooses. You know? I don't know. I showed up at Konohara Academy at that time. I don't know what they saw in me, but they chose me as their next potential husband. And he didn't run away and actually accepted the challenge. You tried to save those spirit souls. That cool side of yours must have fit with their image of an ideal husband. And that concludes Michio Kinakawa's deduction. Man, I sure have a good imagination, right? Maybe I can be a novelist or something. To be honest, I'm blown away by the story that Michio concocted for me. It's as if the departed themselves is telling me their plans. I would have never thought that you could piece together the train of thought so well. Surprised. Michio smiles, her fingers playing with her white hair. I suppose it's because that doll was cursed by the departed. Previously, she said she thought the departed was that female doll. I guess she still stands by that opinion. Somehow I can understand how they feel, like when I was possessed by Kashima. The departed has been longing for an ideal husband for who knows how long. And then they found you. Chio? Oh! Ugh! Bleh! Bleh! Aki! I love you. I want to vow to live happily ever after with you. No! Go away! Then I want to... Nope! Straight to the dorm with you. Eat you up. Oh. Oh, is she the departed? Still, straight to the dorm with you. Just kidding. Fuck off. I am kicking you out of this moving vehicle. Come on now. Oh, don't be mad, please. I end up getting carried away when I start acting like the Departed. Why would you do that? I'm kicking her out of this vehicle. We're opening the door and I am kicking her out. How was it? Did I freak you out? It's not funny. I'm sorry. It was really inappropriate. Yes, it was. Just doing funny ghost impressions for jokes. You know, for the lulz. Ugh. Ugh. Horrible. Listen, I love making jokes at times where things are a little uncomfy because it can make light of things. However, if we're in the middle of being threatened of dying, you don't make jokes like, "Oh ha ha ha, I'm the killer." That's how you get stabbed. Are you fucking kidding me? Hi, Emmy. Yeah, there's more Death Mark. God, you gotta catch up on the VODs. They're here on Twitch. They're also on YouTube. I hope you have a good laydown. Stream will be up. You'll just listen to me scream about everything. We are like nearing the end of the game, just as a general heads up. But it's been great. It's been so good. Just gonna be me mad at all the characters for being rude and horrible, and it's gonna be a great time. Oh boy. I opened the window and let the cold night air in. I don't think I can bear this indescribable atmosphere. Yeah, well, someone came in and made it worse. It's like she came into the car and just took a shit and was like, ah ha ha ha, jokes! No, not jokes! Fix it! Whoa, why are the lights red? Because red means scary. Yeah, she came into the car and took a ghost shit, and now she needs to clean it up. Because I'm not doing it. I'm not the one who shit here. Alright, I didn't tell you about this. They've been like this since last night. I think the Departed did this, but I could be wrong. I see. Is this their way of trying to charm you? In what way exactly? Let's see. The Departed thinks you're their ideal husband, right? They do, yeah. This is something I've seen on TV. In Shinto weddings, bonfires and paper lanterns are usually lit at night to illuminate the path of the newlyweds. I figure these lights are their version of that. They're really going all out to perfect every detail of their wedding, then. I mean, everything they do is pretty detailed. They issue fancy notices and even blend themselves in with the people in school. But they're having so much fun. I am so sick of Michiho's shit right now. I am so sick of this girl. I was threatening to kick Abe into the sun. I think I want to yeet Michiho across the galaxy at this point. Killer stars! Yes. Yes. I can't with this girl. Maybe this is another reason why I really like Himiko, is because, you know, she's not a bitch. And my pain is not her pleasure. So, you know, that's cool. They issue fancy notices and even blend themselves in with school. Yeah, fuck off. I don't doubt that. Among spirits, there are some who feel their greatest pleasure when they're inflicting fear on humans. Supposedly exquisite pleasure that humans cannot comprehend. The Departed might be one of those spirits. It doesn't seem to be causing any harm, so we probably shouldn't pay any attention to it. What do you mean we should just... Oh yeah, those lights, they're like really weird, and definitely like because of the ghost. We should just disregard it. Let's just ignore it for now. You know who I'm gonna start ignoring? This bitch. You're a strong one, aren't you? Shall we go to the library then? Why don't you go back to the dorms? It's getting late. Ooh, don't wanna. Let me tag along until the end. I'm curious to know where this leads. But how about I promise I'll go home once we find the old book? Just let me stay until then. No! What if I don't want to? Then I'll still tag along. Sheesh. Better find that old book as soon as possible so this curfew-breaking student will head home. Best place to find a book should be in the library. I'm, like, going to scream. I am sick of this girl. Also, haven't found a damn tooth this whole time. I am upset. Get her out of here. Okay. It's fine. We're gonna be in the library and everything's gonna be fine. Book's not gonna be here though, is it? There's a wooden book storage cabinet with a glass door. It seems to store special books that aren't allowed to leave the school premises. Since old books would be considered valuable items, it should be somewhere around here. Probably should have checked the other shelves for a tooth, though. Michiyo and I split up to check each book storage section. Each city's local documents and old maps are stored together in the school newspaper folder. Skim the documents, hoping to find anything related to the departed to no avail. Can't seem to find anything that looks like an old book either. Hey, Mr. Cost? This book has some information about M-Town. Yeah, honestly, speedrunning the part with Horrible Lady. I just want her gone. But I know that she's not gonna go. We're gonna find this book and she's not gonna leave. She's gonna stick around the whole time, and I'm gonna be very upset about it. Michiyo shows me a book titled Each City's Local History, which was self-published by the previous headmaster. Issued a year ago, this book apparently was only given to family and close friends. Thinking it might be connected to the case, I write down the bits about M-Town in my notes. Konohara and M-Town. Konohara used to be a small town named M. The area where Konohara Academy currently sits was once M-Town's downtown. M-Town had its own beliefs and customs, though they gradually disappeared following the westernization that occurred during the Meiji period. Furthermore, the plague that occurred at the end of the Meiji era caused a sharp decrease in its population. The survivors all called it the Departed's Wrath, but autopsies determined it to actually be cholera. Still unknown what the Departed refers to, though some speculate it may be tied to their local folklore. M-Town's religion. 2 earthly deities were enshrined in M-Town. One of them was Mushigami. Details regarding this deity are hazy, as there are not many traces of M-Town's customs, though it does beg the question, did these people really make an insect their god? Mushigami Shrine was said to be located in the vicinity of Konohara Academy's old building. Because the shrine was already half ruined when the school was founded, they demolished it to build the old building. When the first headmaster, Genzo Konoe, had the shrine demolished, he tried to placate Mushigami and the souls of those who died of the plague. This is how the shrine in the connecting corridor came to be. I mean, that would explain why there's all those centipedes all over it. Both teachers and students might have called it Kokuri Shrine, but that's actually incorrect. It was simply named after the guardian fox of the Mushigami Shrine, which is now standing in the courtyard. We've seen that, we've interacted with it, we know what that is. Okay. Lord Mushigami, huh? What a beautiful name. I want to know their connection to the departed. How should I put this? There are many scary stories where gods punish humans for destroying their shrines. The departed's wrath began before the shrine was destroyed, though. True, but I don't think those things are completely unrelated, because those who knew about the wrath died one after the other. You see the picture of the talisman over here? I think they had good taste for choosing centipedes, don't you think so too? Is the theme Scolopendra subspinipes? Michiyo points at the photo on the edge of a page about the local history. That's what we saw in the shrine in the corridor. It's an old talisman with a centipede drawn on it. Looking at the details, this talisman was made at Mushigami Shrine. Apparently, the previous headmaster got his hands on it. In M Town, people believed they could escape danger by putting this talisman on the front of their houses. Why do I feel like I've seen this talisman somewhere before? No, where was it? Yeah, I said that ages ago, even before we saw it. Oh, that's right. The shrine on the second floor, there are talismans hanging there. But all we found inside the shrine was the petri dish. There wasn't any information related to M-Town. According to the book, that shrine was built to replace M-Town's Mushigami shrine. So what are disaster prevention talismans doing hanging in a shrine that's been around for so long? Were they afraid that, were they that afraid of the Mr. Kukuri rumors or something? I just remembered. I saw that talisman before. Michio, who's peering at the book beside me, speaks up. Shrine in the connecting corridor, right? To my surprise, she shook her head in disagreement. Where did you see it then? Over there. I was completely confused at the time, but I saw that talisman with my own eyes. The place where she was completely confused. Don't tell me she saw that talisman at... At a cemetery? I was definitely confused when I heard Kashima's voice, but that isn't the place I'm talking about. It's the clock tower. Okay, like, why are you making me guess that? I wouldn't know. I didn't see it with my eyes. When both Hime and I were on the ground, I saw that talisman. Why don't we go inspect the clock tower? It's locked, though. It was open that time, no? I mean, it's already nighttime, so who knows? Maybe it's open again. It might be indeed. Doesn't make any logical sense, but I'm still willing to believe in that slim chance. Let's go to the clock tower. Nice way to just sneakily go back on your promise of leaving after after we find that book. Clever. Bookshelf is filled with all sorts of encyclopedias and pictorial books. So the World Beetle Encyclopedia is back, huh? Now you can see as many beautiful beetles as you want. I'm looking for teeth. Chio takes out a book with a stern-looking beetle on the cover. Man, I really can't get enough of this. All of them are just so cute. My suspicion of Michio is going back up, especially now that there's talk of, like, you know, the Departed being like, bugs! And she's a little bug freak. Normally I would say bug freak affectionately, but nah. I mean it in a derogatory manner. Not even, but she's like a little weirdo about bugs. Man, I really just can't get enough of this. All of them are just so cute. I guess this is how men must feel when they look at a gravure. I know what this word is, and I can never pronounce it. But, you know, it's at a magazine. I don't know how to reply to that. Like, you see this elephant beetle is just adorable. Look at the silhouette in this corner. I want the tooth that just dropped. As Michio's about to show a photo from the book, something falls out. Teeth! Pick it up. It's an eerie tooth. We got teeth. Why is that here? They came from an insect encyclopedia of all things. Are they challenging me? Hold on a second. They're talking so loudly upstairs that I can hear them past my headphones. Fucking hell, I can't wait until next week. Oh my god. Books about plants are arranged on this shelf. Well, there are some who are interested in plants, but not me. I only see plants as bug food. You're bug food. Fucking sick of this girl. This is the library's checkout counter. There's nothing particularly unusual about it. Been checking out books related to insects. I recommend World's Weirdest Insects. Okay, well, I don't care. Connecting corridor. Just real tired of this girl. Get her out of here. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm getting a call. Hello? Oh, what's up, Hime? I'm helping Mr. Cost right now. We're gonna go to the clock tower. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Mr. Cost is here with me, so we'll be fine even if the departed shows up. Don't be mad, Hime. I promise I'll be home in 30 minutes. Cover for me in the meantime. Ugh, Hime is mad. I mean, she's always kind of irritated by my actions, but she doesn't usually scold me. She's worried about you, and is correct to scold you. I guess so, but I bet she's also worried about you, too. She likes you, you know? Yeah, but she's not inappropriate about it. Even if that's the case. Enough of that nonsense, please. No, I have proof, all right. Hime's always been well-behaved, but she's totally ignored all Miss Sakamoto's warnings. You know why? Because she's really giving her all for you. You think so? Absolutely. Please treat her well. She is a fine student. She cares about the safety of others. Massive statue of the guardian fox stands here. It's darkened, which gives one the impression that it has been here for quite some time. Now that I think about it, what was the voice I heard before? What's wrong, Mr. Cost? You look troubled. Oh, actually... Talk about the strange voice I heard when I prayed for the girl's safety. So you prayed for Hime and I. Thank you. God. She flashes a grin at me. I'm tickled. I am so tickled by this situation right now. Do you think that voice might be the voice of Inari? Maybe they think you're a teacher who deeply cares for his students, so they're granting your wish. The voice sounded way too ominous for that, though. But I did obtain a lost soul that should help me with the investigation. Can't help but think that that was Inari helping me out. It's intriguing for some reason. Alright, let's give it a try. Try what? Try thinking about me and make another wish. I'm not... Oh my god. Who knows? Maybe you'll hear something. Why don't you give it a try? I'm only doing it for the chance of a tooth. Sure, let's give it a try. I'm gonna pray about a tooth. Nice. I love an inquisitive teacher. Close your eyes, concentrate, and make a wish. I wish I had a tooth. Close my eyes, as Michio said. I clasp my hands and make a wish in my mind. I wish for a tooth. All of a sudden, I hear the sound of something. That was... Mr. Cost, it fell from the fox. Michio gives me an item. Wish granted! Ask and you shall receive. It really worked. Yeah. Didn't hear any voice, though. Wonder why. Doesn't matter, we got tooth. There's only 2 teeth left. Hi. She had fangs. Can I go over here? I know they don't... Okay. Got the old literature I'm looking for. Yeah. Well, we're also not looking for literature anymore, but whatever. Okay. Try in front gate? No. Okay. I like that he's still like, we're looking for literature, and it's like, no, we're trying to go to the clock tower. Whatever, though. Once again, I arrive at this place. I recall the story I heard from Doryu this evening. During summer break, Doryu and Michio discovered the doll the first headmaster put in here. Is it here? So I ask, swallowing down my saliva. My mind is screaming that I'm in grave danger, and should not take one step closer. Oh my goodness. Hold on. Okay. That bell again. Michio doesn't seem to hear it. I really am the only one who can hear it. Bell stops ringing. What's wrong? Nothing. Let's go. And it's open. Great. Wonderful. Just what I wanted. It's open. How? This is our chance. Let's use this chance to solve the mystery of the clock tower. Go home, Michiho. Yeah, sure. I am displeased with Vincenzo right now. Step into the clock tower. The unpleasant smell of dampness and mold hits my nostrils immediately. Wait outside, Michio. I'm coming with you. I'm not scared at all. I don't give a shit if you're scared or not. Go away. I want you to keep an eye on the door. If I get locked in up here, things will get really bad. Oh, okay. I'll keep the exit safe for you. Be careful. Thank fuck. Oh my god. Michio leaves the clock tower. I'm gonna look at that cabinet, but I want to look at this on the off chance that there is a tooth first. Mannequin without limbs. Has it always been clothed? What are you talking about? An old Western-style cabinet with several talismans pasted on it. What do you know? Michio is telling the truth. Let's take a closer look. There's a drawing of a centipede on the talisman, just like in the photo from the book. These talismans seem to be sealing something sinister inside. However, a plank is preventing me from opening the door. I need to get rid of it first. Do I have anything? Can I use this note to pry it off? Slide that paper through and then yank? That's how that works, right? What's this? Dusty stone floor. Now that I look closely, I can see something resembling a tooth stuck in the gutter. Get the tooth! Get the tooth! My finger should be able to fit in. Should I pick it out? Yes. Yes. Tooth. Tooth. Wedge my finger in and try to fish the item out. However, the tooth doesn't budge at all. Should be able to get it if I widen the gap a little. If I wedge the gap open with something hard, then... Okay, I need whatever item I need for the cabinet, and then I can use it on the floor first. Hi. K-I-L-L. Listen. Who's that? Blurt out the question. But there's no reply. The silent darkness is the only thing accompanying me in here. Alright, well... There's a large wooden box against the wall. And peer inside to find a crowbar and a wrench. I can use these to get rid of the planks. Crowbar. Blackened wrench. Hang on. I noticed something and look around the room. I don't see any more stairs to climb. This is the top floor. There's no altar anywhere. Ghost yelling, "Kill! You does one toilet flush worth of damage." Listen, that toilet was really scary, okay? Female doll was placed on an altar. That's what door you told me. Same story was in the school newspaper. So why isn't there an altar anywhere in here? Well, because it's gotta be the cabinet downstairs, right? Oh my god, stop screaming at me. It's fine. Kill. Hold on. Kill. There we go. Shut up. Despite my pleading yells for the unknown entity to stop their oral torture, the voice continues on. Feels like there are insects crawling inside my head as it drones on and on. Kill, you said. Stop there. They're oral torture, not oral. Oral. Oral? problem, Stars? You don't like oral torture? Oral? Oral? I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And then we're just sitting here just listening to them drone on. What do you want me to kill? Oh, God. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I do need them to stop, though. Oh, right, I need to use an item, not my fingers. Yeah, free teeth! Let's use the crowbar. Maybe I can get the tooth out if I widen the gap with this tool? Take aim, swing down. Why are you swinging it? Gap's widened. Tooth is free. Teeth! I bet I can't just, like, leave, can I? I'm unable to return to the infirmary right now. Okay, let's not be here anymore. That is the question, isn't it? I mean, you're the one who would have to hear it again if you clipped it. So, unless somebody else wanted to do the deed. I'm sorry I phrased it that way. Fucking hell. It's fine. Everything is fine. It's just, these noises are definitely starting to drive me crazy. Like, it's preventing me from opening the door. I need to remove it. Yeah, we know that. Everything is fine. It's all fine here. There are no problems. I am still just sitting here thinking about that word and overthinking how I've pronounced it. But as I think about it, no, they're both just very similar. Use the crowbar to remove the plank before getting rid of the talismans, then I open the door. Please stop whispering kill at me. There really is no good answer. Yeah. There's an old book inside. M-Town's private records. It's written on the cover. Is this the old book we're searching for? Great. Can we not read this in here? Oh, God. This is written in a peculiar ancient script. You know what I can do? Oh, I'm free. Y'all aren't, but I am. No, I can still kind of hear it, is the thing. But not nearly as bad. It's not all-encompassing anymore. This is written in a peculiar ancient script. It'll take me some time to decipher the content. I am dying. Headache is getting worse. But I have to read this. This must be where the departed secret... What is happening? Suddenly the letters turn red. A touch of leprosy. It's fine, I'm sure. Red. Bright red. Yeah, words tend to do that. I can't read the book like this. Tell me what's written here. It's just kill. Oh my God. Do you want me to kill someone that badly? But who? Oh no. Dear husband. Why is she Fang's titties? Why is she Fang titties? Why she got the titty fangs? The Fang titties. Are you the departed? Did you eat Kayshurrr? Oh no. You know what? Good question. Why is she Fang Titties? It's like a spider, but it's like if like how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spiders were stacked on top of each other, but had people hands. This is neither a dream nor a hallucination. The departed really has transformed. Dear husband. Oh, sorry, hold on.
Dear husband.
Spider peed. Sorry, I'm thinking about red flags now. Spider peed. Not ironically. Sorry. But what are you gonna do this time? She's got fangs for tits. She got the fang titties. Oh, what's happening here? Divergent. Thank you for the follow. Heck of a time. While we're talking about the fang titties. But thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Oh boy. Where is Michiho, by the way? I don't think that's top priority right now. Oh, welcome. Oh, hold on.
Thank you for the food.
Don't tell me you ate Michio. Would we really be that upset if she had?
Kill. Kill.
I understand the need for fang titties, but even no eyes? That's commitment. No eyes. Only fangs for tits. I like that the... This is a little much. But the, like, one of the middle pairs, her second set of arms, her middle set of arms, are just squeezing the two pairs together. Because those aren't... Like, there's two sets there, right? Next to each other. And she's like, no, these ones need to be real close. Sorry, not the Legolas. What do your titty eyes see? She's going down the stairs, but what about the others? Thank you for the sub. I appreciate. I'm really glad. Sorry, this is a wild time to be existing right now. I'm happy to be sharing this moment with you. And I'm glad that you felt that this was sub-worthy. Sorry, this is joined to the perfect. Look, we're usually a touch, tiny, itty bitty bit chaotic around here. This is a not a new level, but definitely slightly higher level of nonsense by comparison. But I'm glad this hasn't put you off, so hey. Yeah, we are kind of like this always. Hold on a second. And I do be coughing up a storm constantly. Alright. Back at it. We're gonna not worry about the fang tits. Legolas, what do your titty eyes see? Kill who? You've killed so many people already. What the hell do you want me to kill? Oh, shit. Is now a bad time to say I need to go to the bathroom? The Departed is clearly a monster I don't really want to get close to. Oh. Sorry, there's a period in there. The Departed is clearly a monster. I don't really want to get close to it. I mean, to be fair, even if you run those sentences together, it makes sense. Shrimp check! Okay, hold on a second. I'm not really shrimping, but I'm gonna stand up over here. Ugh, okay. I'm gonna put my foot under me so I can be propped up, so I can be tall. Is a good excuse for a break. Well, you know what? In that case, I gotta hydrate. Okay, here is the thing. If I'm gonna be doing a hydrate right now, I do need to actually get up and go use the restroom. So, I'll do my hydrate. And now, we will take a momentary break. And, yeah, and then we'll deal with the Fang Titty situation. You know how it is. You know how it goes. Oiter has been dunked. Kaysh needs to piss. Donald or Mickey? Donald. Mickey is being negligent of the entire kingdom, sure. But Donald 100% has the ability to heal me constantly and doesn't. That motherfucker lets you die all the time for no reason because he's an idiot and he's the worst magician ever. He's supposedly the best wizard in all of the kingdom and he fucking sucks. That's my rant about Donald Duck. Plus he makes those bad noises. Those bad noises. We don't like that. Even unless you kill someone. I realize there's a part of me that really wants to get off this island. At that moment, I let out a scream. Ah! Scream erupted from my mouth. Ah! Rushed through my mouth like water from a glass dam. Ah! Why me? Why do I have to go through this? Ah! How do I... Okay. Okay. I'm back. Let's turn that back up where it was. I don't know why those specific clips were all very quiet. Maybe it was just quiet on my end. Who knows? But yeah. Thanks. I feel welcomed. I am not shrimping. I have dinked my oiter. I have piffed. Yeah, like, even with the, like, I turned the game audio down a bit. I haven't really needed to, like, do that for some of the other ones. I don't know what's up with the clip program that I use sometimes. Sometimes it's, go pith, I mean they. Sometimes it's, like, sometimes the clips are, like, a good volume. Sometimes they're too loud. And then other times it's like, I can't, what? I can't hear you. But it's okay. Not shrimping, Dane, I just got called out. So you're new here. Hi, you're new. We're calling you out a little bit. No. We do have some, like, community redemptions. Specifically any of the, like, self-care things. So, like, doing a shrimp check, hydrating, doing a stretch, all those kinds of things. If I have to do that, if I have to take care of my dang self, it's recommended that you do it as well. Tuned in once before and that's it. I mean, it's nice to see that you came back. We very much appreciate lurkers and all that kind of stuff. Where there's never any pressure to, like, you know, actually talk in chat, but we love it when you do. But yeah, no, any of our, like, self-care, like, channel point redemptions and stuff, it's highly encouraged, that everyone do that. Oh! I thought I recognized your name. We watched a movie together. I am a fool. Hi. Sorry. Sometimes I'm a little dense. In my defense, I do customer support work, like, as my day job, and I see so many usernames all day because I work specifically with content creators, that I just, sometimes names, even with people that I've spent time with outside of work, they all just kind of bleed together. I'm sorry. I'm Dakin over there, which is my lost account here. Oh, jeez. Do you have a name that you would prefer we call you? Because I want to make sure that I'm referring to everyone appropriately. But also, hi! I'm glad. Listen, we bonded over that Lord of the Rings movie. We're besties now. Either is fine, or Sarah, you're all good? Okay, cool. Great. I like to check. I like to make sure. This makes me feel a little better about you coming into this kind of content. This is, like I said, fang tits, not always what we're dealing with, but it is kind of what we have. But we love having more nerd friends. I guess the only other thing that I have to offer, you may have heard me say it before, just as a quick little, let me tell you about myself. You've already subscribed. You're stuck here with us now. That's not true. I mostly do, like, horror and mystery games. And because of that, I always, regardless of the game that we're playing, I always offer content warnings. Obviously, Fang Titties are here. But I typically use the Does the Dog Die page, which is a wonderful community resource. And you can fill it out to make sure that other people are aware of what kind of content is in the games. There aren't really, like, many topics and things that, like, can trigger me, but I understand that is, especially being, like, in a community such as the queer community, and or people who are neurodivergent or deal with sort of, like, mental health kind of stuff. I understand that a lot of that kind of stuff can be it's sensitive, and I want to make sure that people are aware of, like, what kind of things we're gonna be broaching on stream and stuff like that. But yeah. Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. I'm, like, more full of coughs today than normal. It was really cold today, and again, it got kind of warm, but it just stayed, like, really cold and damp today, so my lungs are unhappy. But yeah, we did hop on this one a bit early. It just came out earlier last month, and it's definitely, like, not a super well-known game, so we are filling it out as we go. I love that you have the content warning command there. Of course! I have it set up so that it will just, like, show up in chat every so often. Same thing with, like, because we do, or at least I used to play a lot of, like, indie games specifically. I wanted to make sure that we were, like, you know, supporting indie devs and stuff. So I always, like, offer, usually, like, the Steam link for a game, but whatever links are available for, like, where you can download or purchase the game, that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, I think it's, like, it's very important to make sure that we're supporting devs for the kinds of things that they're putting out. And again, making good informed choices about the kind of content that we are consuming. So yeah, it's a little thing that I've like done for a really long time and would like to just, like I said, I just want to make sure that everyone's making good choices about the kinds of things that they can and cannot partake in, because I know that it's not for everyone. Anywho, there's that tangent. Welcome to the community. We're happy to have you here, Sarah. The Departed is clearly a monster. I don't really want to get close to it. Oh! I'm listening. I'm trying to listen from across the country. As soon as you grip it and rip it. Grip it and rip it! You need to post that in chat, and you did. Nice! We love this! But yeah, of course. We're happy to have you here, like I said. Monster, don't want to go near it. What should I do? I like that, sorry, now that I am looking past the fang tits, I like that the Departed has, like, her top hands are just like, woo! Very excited. Very party ready. The middle one's ready for when she's gonna run. She is prepared. And then she's got the little gribbler hands down there at the very bottom. She is ready to gribble. And that's horrifying. They haven't really given me a lot of options here. Yeah, that's like, we're not. I think taking a defensive stance is probably the best, just so we can figure out what she's doing. Because throwing the wrench, bad idea. We don't want to get rid of that. Threaten to throw, I could see, like, faking her out, but again, I don't know what the fuck she does. So let's do the crowbar and take a defensive stance. I am concerned about the fact that we only have one hit point. I think I saw Fruity mention earlier, like, oh, this is the event that, like, takes you down to 1. Like, this is a scripted event that gets you to 1. And I agree with that, but I am still scared about the fact that we are at 1 hit point. Try defending myself with the crowbar. You've got to be ready to gribble. You've got to be ready to gribble. But must you be ready to be gribbled? The gribbly. You can be a gribbler, but not the gribbly. Suck. S. Gribble he. My god. Hold up the crowbar and strengthen my defense, but the Departed doesn't move an inch. I can see a faint smile on the Departed's face. Where? Where? Vincenzo, look at this creature and point where you see it smiling. Fucking where? Looks like I made the wrong choice. Do you think he's confusing a tit for a face? Because I can kind of see that. Hold on. Does my... No, my mouse doesn't get captured anymore. I'm trying to think of where to point. The tits are smiling. Horrible. So if you look at the top rack. I regret calling it that. The top pair? Do you think the 4 tits in the middle are the mouth? And because they are kind of curving like upward, that it's a smile? I don't want to think about that anymore. I hate this. It's a beautiful morning. The birds are singing. The tits are smiling. They might unhinge sideways. Yeah, I mean, it does kind of... Listen, I've played Dark Souls. It is giving kind of like a gaping dragon sort of vibe. Pre-gape. I need to stop saying words right now. Oh my god. What should I do? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, so the gaping dragon is like this, right? Right? You can see inside its belly and up through its neck and its face. Imagine pre-game, it'd be like this, right? Is that a post-game? But oral torture and pre-gaped dragons. This is hello, welcome. Thank you, bot, for reminding everyone that this is an 18+ stream. Let's stab the departed. Oral torture and pre-gaped dragons is the name of my autobiography. Holy shit. Sorry, I don't know if y'all could hear that. I heard like a huge rumble. And I just assumed it was my upstairs neighbors being dicks again. Nah, that was thunder. Holy shit. No, it's oral torture. It's oral torture now. That's the name of your autobiography. No, you can't. Editors don't exist anymore. Good. I'm wheezing, excuse me. Holy shit. I'm gonna, like, pass out before the end of stream. Just from, like, laughing so much. Take a couple of steps forward and try to stab the departed with the crowbar. And this music isn't necessarily helping the situation either. Talking about all these horrible things. Success. I stretch my body and swing my arm as hard as I can. However, the wrench doesn't reach that. Well, I didn't use the wrench. Am I too far away? I'm trying to, like, make it as pronounced as possible, but no matter how I say oral, it's just not right. Oral torture isn't a 6-foot smell limit song, but it is the tagline for their most famous review. Oral torture is definitely one of their hits. Absolutely. Big agree. I can see a faint smile on the departed's face. Looks like I made the wrong choice. Why did it say wrench? I was using the... R.L. Stein? I love Goosebumps. Oral torture. I don't know what a Jersey accent is. I don't know what that was. I'm so sorry. Oral torture. I don't... My face has gone so red. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Oral torture. I gotta stop. I have to stop. You've given me a horrible new thing to say. There is a pirate museum in Cape Cod. That doesn't surprise me. Oh my god. Oh. I've, like, actually given myself a headache from laughing and coughing so much. It's fine. It's just a sign that we've done a fun thing today. Okay, first, things I know about Cape Cod. Water, potato chips, pirate museum. I missed the comma after water, so I read that as water potato chips. Pirate museum. And I was like, what the fuck is a water potato chip? How are you frying water over here? The lesser known alternative to saltwater taffy. Oh no. The chips are also a museum. You can tour it. I want to go to the chip museum. What are potato chips? Water chestnut's cousin. Oh my god, y'all, please. How do you like that? I say, throwing a wrench at the horrible... Oh god, that worked. Why is it the option that I was like, nah, definitely not that? Why was that the one that worked? The wrench hit the departed. Something about the departed scream earlier seems strange to me. Looks like the attack is working. I want to believe I made the right choice. Yeah, I'm gonna take it as a win. Fortunately, like, she's not damaging me, so, like, we'll take it. Oh, hold on a second. Where did voice mod go?
Dear husband!
Might fuck around with some of these other ones. Y'all tell me what they're like. Oh god. Oh no. She gonna open up and it's gonna be bad. Oh, okay, let's try this one.
Dear husband!
Oh, oh, oh.
Kill!
I'm just selecting random voice mods at this point. She gonna open and it's gonna be bad. Why are her bottom tits fading? Or were those always there? She gonna get... Please? Did they just say kill? They keep whispering the same word over and over. Are they telling me to kill the departed or what? Does the departed want me to kill them? Well, she's very close now. This feels like a trap. This feels like a trap. I don't like this, but I don't think I have any other options. Trying to think about the situation, I can't forgive the departed if they killed Michio. I tried to swing the crowbar at the departed. I'm also just like at the point where I'm like, can I please stop looking at her? Ma'am, I would like to not look at you anymore. You want me to kill? It also... That scream? He mentions that it's like, oh, it was a weird scream and I think it worked. It kind of, and it could be me looking way too far into it, kind of sounds like Michiho? I don't know. It sounds like a juvenile femme voice, you know? Anyway, my crowbar violently strikes the departed. How's that? That's what you want, right? The departed sounds satisfied. I think she likes this. I think she might be a bit of a masochist. And I'm not here for this. If you wish to be killed, I'll put an end to this. No, this is what she wants, which means we can't do it. Slam the crowbar into the departed. Well, I didn't even get to choose that time. Die! Die! Shut the fuck up! Swing the crowbar with reckless abandon. Die! 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 Yeah, we get it. We're wailing on it. My god. I think we're killing Michiho. I think that's what's happening. Why? Why is she ups on the floor? Well, here's the thing. Bugs. There's a large swarm of bugs. The bloody body is covered in bugs. Yeah. Oh no. What a terrible accident. Honestly, at this point, my biggest concern is, shit, we did the murder. We're gonna get in trouble. You heard my wish, dear husband. You killed she who was close to you. Thank you, dear husband. Well. Don't tell me I was controlled by the departed. Can we stop with the heavy breathing, please? Then I'm glad he covered that for us. I was getting ready to do a very silly scream. Flee from the clock tower. Well, this doesn't seem great. I roam about aimlessly with the crowbar in hand. It's being controlled and attacked the spirit in front of me. Like I said, I knew it was a fucking trap. But it wasn't a spirit, it was Michiho. Even though my eyes saw the departed. Oh, shit. Mr. Cost? What's going on? What are you doing with that bloody crowbar? Doryu? Why are you here? I was worried since Michiho hasn't come home yet. Where is she? What happened, Mr. Cost? Well... Oi, bruv. What you doing with that bloody crowbar? Did you... Sorry. I watched the media scrum from the pay-per-view last night, and Will Ospreay, he's just a sweet little guy when he's not in the ring, but he does still always say bruv. And he swears all the time, and I love him. He's just a little guy. He's not a little guy, he's a big meaty boy. But he's just a little guy. Oh shit, what we do? I tell her what happened? At the clock tower, I was controlled by the departed. I attacked her with this crowbar. Huh? No way. You should go. I'm gonna go check. No, don't. Doryu rushes over to the clock tower. Even knowing the departed might still be in there, I can't stop her from rushing inside. She returns after a while. She looks as emotionless as a wax statue, but her eyes are red and swollen. I saw her. She just stares at me, shell-shocked. She doesn't even cry or lash out at me. Her mind can't even process what she should do. Mr. Cost, what are we gonna do now? You're gonna go home. Fuck. Call an ambulance, call the police, call the headmaster. Well, none of these are great. Calling the cops is just the worst option. Always. Regardless of the situation. Don't do that. I don't think an ambulance is gonna help. You know, given the circumstances. But also, fuck the headmaster. I'd understand why you want to contact the headmaster, but given the situation, I don't know if he'd be willing to help you. Yeah, call an ambulance then? No, it's too late. She's not breathing. She has no pulse. Well, I don't want to call the cops! Again! This is just the wrong choice. I don't think they'll believe you if you tell them you were being controlled by the departed. They'll arrest you, and if that happens, you won't be able to pursue the departed anymore. Call the cops, tell them ghosts made you do it. Establish early the insanity plea. No, okay, I'm glad that they were, like, all bad, because I didn't like all of them. TBF, calling the cops is on brand for horror. I mean, it is the most horrifying option. It is. But it's just, like, I hate it when that's an option, because it's like, they're not gonna do anything. They do add to it, right? But it's just, like, and I know, like, I mean, it is, like, a thing. It's, if you either don't call the cops at all, and they would have, in canon, resolved the issue right away, or you call them and they just make the situation worse. It's just bad. It's just bad. They're not gonna do anything. In, like, a situation like this, it's like, yeah, what's the worst that's gonna happen? They're gonna show up. You're gonna tell them, oh yeah, this ghost possessed me and, like, made me do a murder on this girl. And then you're gonna get arrested. And then you're gonna get murdered because you killed a kid. What do you want me to do? Huh? Yeah, literally, what is the upside? There's no... There's just no good options. The ghost did it, I swear. Hand on my heart. Ghost did it. Can I ask you to decide for me, please? It's a cowardly move, I know. But I also fear my own judgment now. What if I'm still under the departed's control? Mr. Cost? Got it. After a long silence, Doryu nods her head. She opens her mouth again right after. Follow me, Mr. Cost. Sorry, I'm starting to, like, be suspicious of Doryu, and if nothing else, it comes down to the fact that I like her. And we all know, if I like a character, they're either evil or dead. And we've already killed one kid today. So, like, we gotta swing to the other side. And go with the evil option. Not that I liked Michiyo. I didn't. There was a short period of time there where I was like, yeah, I can, like, tolerate her. And then that went away real dang quickly. But I actually like Himiko. Therefore, once Doryu is settled on a course of action, she quickly regains her composure. I'm still stunned, but she immediately grabs my hand and drags me out of Konohara Academy. Can you drive? Yeah. You better head to your home first and come up with a plan there. Jeez. Doryu takes the passenger seat as I drive my car back to Kuzhou Mansion. During the ride, I tell her about what happened earlier. Even though I struggle to find the words and need to pause several times, Doryu pushes me, and I manage to get through my recap. I wonder if there is a way to save Michiyo, not me, like, immediately forgetting her fucking name. That felt scripted. That felt like there was no way to, like, get out of that situation, right? Once we arrive at the mansion, I take off my sweat-soaked shirt and take a hot shower. Or in Doryu's words, I warm up my body and calm my mind down. Her firm attitude and language remind me of my late sister. My sister often tried to whip me into shape and scolded me for being lazy. Yeah, we were given bad options. And, like, I tried to go, like, the pacifist route first, right? With the whole, like, you know, defend or whatever. And that didn't work. And then all the other options were, like, hit them, do a murder. Yeah, it didn't look like there was a don't murder option. Looked like all the options were kill. So that feels, like, pretty set in stone. Oh no, Michio is dead. Put on a new shirt and slacks. May have washed off the blood, but there's no way to cleanse the bloody truth. It is an interesting turn to have, like, our main character actually kill someone. Like, I don't hate this. Even with, like, the upside of getting rid of Michio, like, this is, like, an interesting development that I wasn't expecting. I'm coming in. Okay. You look much better now. Yeah. It's great not being covered in your friend's blood, huh? Thanks to your help. Sorry. Oh, please. Why are you helping me? It was being controlled, but it doesn't change the fact that I killed... Can you please stop? I know you didn't do it of your own will. Weren't you fighting the departed? That's what I thought. It's a bit like Captain Crunch dropped, oops, all murder berries! Just a little bit. Really wasn't expecting the outdamped spot and spirit hunter for real, though. Oh my goodness. We're just gonna be haunted by the blood on our hands. Never hand me a crowbar ever again. That's what I thought. But it turned out it wasn't the departed. Mr. Cost? If you truly care for Michiho, then please avenge her. That's what I wish. And I'm sure Michio would feel the same. Also, not saying it to shift any of the blame, because we did kill her. And genuinely take full responsibility for that. I murdered the shit out of that girl. Please don't take any of these out of context. I have never done a murder. I will never do a murder. But did keep trying to tell her to go home. And this just goes back to the whole everyone who's like volunteering to help understands the gravity of the situation. They understand how dangerous it is. And I kept offering her outs. I kept telling her, hey, you gotta go home after this. Hey, you should go home. Hey, you gotta leave. And she kept not doing it. I murdered the fuck out of her. But it's not like she was forced to be there. Fuck, it sucks that I murdered her. For me, specifically. I have never done a murder is one of those statements that raises more questions than it asks. Or that it answers. Listen. I've never done a murder. That's all. It goes back to the teeth situation. No, when I first read it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then as I thought about it for a minute longer, I was like, wait, that's not the phrase. It's fine. Murder? I need to add more sound commands. I don't even remember which ones we have. I don't even know if any of them are active, actually. Mostly because I was using a different program for those for a while. Half in chats with stars, half in code, and half watching this, spread too thin like Bilbo talked about. Like butter spread by a miser. What a thing. Yeah, I don't think I have our commands anymore. They are like in my chatbot, but I don't think they're active at the moment. I was using a different program for them, but TLDR, the program ended up like sucking actual ass in a not fun way. So There's a corpse in the clock tower. If someone discovers it, then it'll be fine. It's on school grounds, and if the departed is involved, her corpse should disappear. She might be right. Yeah, yeah. Divergent, you're like all over the place right now. It's all good. It makes conversations and picking up on what's happening even more interesting. This is fine, .gif. She might be right. The departed probably doesn't want me to be arrested and barred from the school grounds. Don't click that. Don't click it. Or do and report back what happens. Don't actually, please don't click that. They're as cunning as a human. Everything that's happened so far is probably all part of their master plan. Don't do it! As long as both of us keep this quiet, you won't be suspected of murder. Site can't be reached. I clicked it. I have 80 viruses. Doesn't resolve. Tragic. Fruity, you should get those viruses looked at. As long as both of us keep this quiet, you won't be suspected of murder. So you're saying you want us to continue the investigation while keeping Michio's death a secret? Exactly. I'll never forgive you if you say you want to run from the departed now. Doryu levels a determined gaze at me. I can see black flames burning in her eyes. She's really pissed off at the departed. Maybe granting the wishes of the girl whose best friend I accidentally killed is the best way for me to atone for my actions. Oops, sorry I killed your bestie. I'm begging you, please hunt down the departed. It also, not that the other deaths weren't impactful. However, we have now killed the student council vice president, whereas before it was just like a bunch of nerds who died. Sorry, hold on. How do I say this so that it sounds not horrible? They were a bad bestie. They were a bad bestie. You're right. They were the worst bestie, but a bestie nonetheless. It'll take Himiko some time to see that we've actually done her a favor. No. Yeah. Bunch of no-names died. Essentially, a bunch of red shirts. You know, they weren't anybody. But I think people are gonna notice if, the vice president is dead, so... yeah. I'm gonna nod. Why would I turn myself in? That's silly. Thank you. Let me help you out. Please, avenge Michio. Doryu falls into my arms. Ugh, why? Oh, okay, no, if she's crying, that's a little more understandable. I was like, why are you getting close to me? She is sad. Why? Doryu sobs deeply into my chest. This must have broken her. A girl who lost her best friend and now feels like she's been left all alone in this world. This wound will never heal. If there's one reason I'm still on this earth, it must be that I'm intended to bring an end to this cursed case and bring her some relief. Jeez. The Departed's Wrath. Okay. Here's the thing. We've streamed for 3 hours. And yeah, an hour of that, probably not quite that long, but significant portion of it was dedicated to looking at some fang titties. But I think we should call it there. Because we are so close to the end, that if I don't stop now, then we're gonna have a little bit of a problem in that I will be up far too late trying to finish this game. So we are gonna leave it on a bit of a cliffhanger. Excuse me? Okay, well, if you could stop dying at me. Just a little song. But yeah, no, this has been wonderful. I've again, like I said, like I was a little disappointed. What is this one piece of hair doing? This one. Oh god, I've made it worse. Okay, it's fine. I really liked the first Death Mark. Oh my god, I'm just making all of this worse. Hold on. Sorry. Things that only I will notice. We will be finishing this on Wednesday. That is a promise. This has been such a delight, though. Like, again, it's not that I wasn't having fun playing the other games, but it's just like, I don't know. I haven't been this hyped about a surprise release, one that I wasn't like following. Like, cause I had this much fun with like Alan Wake 2. And I've really been enjoying doing Cult of the Lamb as well. But I think the thing is with like a lot of those and a lot of the games that are coming out soon, that I'm excited about, is that like I knew when they were coming out. Like even if I didn't want to know when they were being released, like I knew when they were coming out because it was posted everywhere. But like with games like this that are Japanese in origin or just like aren't from an English speaking country or aren't being made to be localized in English, whenever it is that they end up getting a translation is so up in the air. Because that happened with like the what was it? Like with the Grimoire remaster. They like talked about remastering it in Japanese first. And I don't think it was until like 6 months later or so that they were like, oh yeah, we're going to be doing this in English too at some point. A lot of these just kind of like, they kind of take like a back seat to like getting a release, especially for like English speaking audiences. And so even if you know like when the game is coming out, because I remember them talking about the release of Death Mark 2 like 2 years ago, like a year or two ago, some time ago. And I was really excited about it, but it was immediately hampered by the whole, who knows when we're going to get it, like an English localization for it. And a lot of that just comes down to the fact, I've watched many videos on this, can probably find one on it, but like even knew about it beforehand. It's a lot of it comes down to the fact that like, localization teams aren't paid really well. And so like, there isn't really like, there is a market for it, but devs specifically aren't looking to fill it. Well, I can't even say devs, I guess publishers specifically. I don't want to blame the devs. Can't hurry that much without good pay. No, 100%. And I am not upset with like the people who are localizing games like this at all. That's why like so many games end up getting fan translations before they get like an official release, if they ever get an official release. Because like, again, like publishers just don't care that much. It's so much work for like, I guess for what they see is like a really little return, but there's so many good non-English games that like, I don't know. This one has just been a delight. Like I said, like, because it was like I wasn't aware of when it was releasing, and then kind of just like caught on to it one day because I saw somebody had like posted a video. It does matter. But I saw like somebody on YouTube, like it wasn't even like a channel that I follow, but I saw somebody be like, oh, like a funny clickbait title, but then I saw that the game was Death Mark 2 and I was like, wait a second. And so I had to like look it up, because at first I wasn't sure if it was like somebody who just like spoke English and Japanese who was, you know, translating as they go. Because like I know a YouTuber I used to follow, still follow, but I just don't watch her videos that often, Gab Smolders, used to do that with a lot of games because, you know, we weren't going to be getting a localization for it. And that was really cool, but it also just meant that like I couldn't play those. But I looked it up and it's like, oh yeah, it's officially released in English now, and it's definitely better. This one, translation wise, has been better than NG was. But there's still, like, some errors here and there. But this one's held up so much better than NG, and I think that also adds to my excitement for it. Because it is, like, a return to form, essentially. They're back to doing what they did with the first one, and it's really exciting. I would genuinely, like, if you want something that, like, gives you, like, proper horror, but is more of a, like, a visual novel style, I would highly recommend playing the first Death Mark. It is so good. And I was talking to Emmy about it the other day as well when we first started this game, and there was the talk of the two characters from the Hanako chapters being lesbians and stuff that, like, I don't know. It's not handled perfectly, but I do really appreciate the fact that, like, a game that is Japanese, and I know that they're as a whole culturally a bit better about, like, handling those kinds of topics nowadays, but it's still just always really surprising to see that, like, they're not made, like, the butt of the joke, or it's not just done to be like, oh, like, they've died and their story is tragic, but it doesn't matter. They, like, actually, like, put some care into it. It is definitely, like, it does lean towards, like, the more tragic side of things. So, like, if queer representation that is sad is not your cup of tea, which is very understandable. Hi, I myself am queer and don't necessarily like seeing that kind of stuff in media. I appreciate the fact that this isn't necessarily, like, placing the blame on these characters, and you do get to, like, help resolve some of the sadness that's around that. That's really nice. Yeah, that's also the other thing. I'm already queer and sad. What's the worst that you can do to me? There's a lot that you can hurt me with regarding that. But no, like, I appreciate the fact that it is, like, there are resolutions for it. The first one has a character that is potentially trans, and you just, like, you get to help, like, I don't know, you get to help validate them, and that's really delightful. And this one has, like, the lesbian couple, and you get to, like, help them rest, and it's just, I don't know, it's a little thing. It's not a little thing. Why am I downplaying that? It's a big thing to have it be so, like, blatant. I don't know. I like it. It's good. It's a good game. I'm having a lot of fun with it. The story is really good. It's really compelling. It's long. And there's not really any points in it that are, like, we talked about it last stream, where it's like there are no lulls. It's just one thing after another, but it flows so well. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about it now, because we can talk more about it once we finished the game. But those are still, like, throughout the entire thing, there have been, like, a couple of, like, after I finished streams, there have been a couple of times where I thought, like, wow, this has been really great. When is it gonna start disappointing me? Not necessarily because I'm expecting it to be bad, but just because it's like, this has been too good the whole time. Where's the, like, one flaw that's gonna come up? And it's just, it's not really been there. It's been great. I love it. But for now, let's let us find someone to raid into. Thank you all for being here. Sorry, I saw that Divergent mentioned that, like, you were happy to catch the tail end of the stream. I'm excited that you were here, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I'm stoked that you're excited for the next one. Yeah, I typically stream you know, like 5 times a week. Usually on the weekends, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My schedule also just, like, wiggles around for whenever I can do it. I'm, you know, I work full time. I'm chronically ill and disabled. I can't always do those things. This game has also been very nice for that, because it's not, I have to talk a lot, but I can play it on my Joy-Cons, so I can wiggle around. I don't have to, like, hold my arms in a single position for an extended period of time. I can move, and I can wiggle, and I can talk, and it's great. Anyway. Oh, I say, listen, a lot of us here are, chronically ill, or disabled, or all of this is or neurodivergent, or dealing with any kinds of that stuff, which is one reason why, like, I don't know, that's one reason why I like doing horror, or, like, why I like looking at horror, because a lot of this kind of stuff is not kind to people like us, people who are queer, or disabled, or neurodivergent, or the list goes on. But I like to be able to, like, talk about that and how, like, we can like these things, but also be critical of it, and also look at how we can fix this. Our monstering flesh, pale as wisteria, yes! Can you remind me? Can you send me a Discord ping, either like in the server or just DM me, that writer name, because I really liked their poems, and I cannot for the life of me remember their name. But yeah. While that's happening, here are our raid messages. Moira J, thank you. Send me the book. Perfect. Delightful. Yeah, okay. I am saving this, and I am sending it to myself so I can remember to look at that later. Because I will probably purchase that for myself. Anyway, there are raid messages. There's an ad break happening right now. For anyone who is not subbed, I am sorry. We're gonna raid out. Who do we have online? There's a lot of people right now. Weird. We're here for it, but it's weird. Let's see. Oh, hold on. Is this the game that I think it is?
We got a Subaru Forester.
Oh, don't listen to that. It is. Okay, this is a. Okay, sorry. Let me finish a single thought. We just rated Dearest Doremi yesterday. However, they just started streaming. They like just went live. And she is playing Devotion, which I didn't think was available anymore. Because it was published by a Chinese studio that was very critical of the is it a prime minister? Does China have a prime minister? Whoever the, like, head of the country is. And their shit got nuked. It is a really good game. It is very interesting. And president? Okay. I am so bad about knowing what other countries have as far as their heads of place arc. Just checked. Okay, so they were very critical of the president of China, and yes, but also in my defense, a lot of that is because I am too focused on what my government is trying to do in regards to, you know, trying to kill me all the time. Anyway, Devotion's real cool. Dearest Doremi is also just a delightful human being. And you're right. I see you. So yeah, we're gonna go say hi to them. And go support another channel that likes to do horror a lot of times. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Have a good one. Goodbye, friends.